Okay, hello everybody. Good evening. This is the Easy Coach. I'm Ethan Evans, and I'm happy to see you all here. Thank you all for coming in. Tonight we're going to talk about how, when, and why to build a professional network. And just here in a second, I'm going to talk about a story where I actually found I burned myself today by not doing enough of this. So even though I set this topic up weeks ago, and even though I have a good network, I can share a failure story and the pain from it that happened just today at work. So with that in mind, a couple reminders. I am speaking just for myself. I work for Amazon as VP of Twitch Prime, but I don't talk about Twitch or Amazon normally here. Second thing, though, I can't help but say everyone knows my trademark blue shirt. But since I just came back from Twitchcon, I thought I'd wear the Twitchcon San Diego shirt because it'd be fun to talk a little bit about Twitchcon. And in fact, I see Chalupa just showed up. One of the things I was going to talk about, I got to meet up with Chalupa Whale there at the show, and Chalup had a pretty good idea. Yep, I don't have the blue shirt tonight. But his idea was for anybody who went to TwitchCon, different symbols get printed on your badges, but there's no acknowledgement right now on your badge for moderators. And he had the idea that there should be a sword printed on the badge for moderators. So I did discuss it with Emmett, who runs Twitch, of course, CEO. And there's no promises, but he thought it was a cool idea to try and increase recognition for the mods. So 40 Pink Dragons, one of our mods here, Shadow Fox, another. Very appreciative of everything they do, and it would be great to see more recognition at TwitchCon for the mods who attend. My guess is almost everyone who attends TwitchCon is a mod, but it would still be cool to know. And maybe they could list the channels. Look and fly with the necklace. Yeah, the necklace is always there, but it's usually below the blue shirt. So it's just visible tonight because I don't have on the long sleeve shirt. Anyway, what else? Hey, another fun thing happened at TwitchCon I was not expecting, which is people recognized me from the channel and grabbed me on the street. I was walking along with a member of my team, and somebody who's watching right now, actually, unless he's dropped off, saw me on the street and said, "Hey, I know you. You're the Easy Coach. Can we do a photo?" And I think my team, who doesn't always pay attention to the fact I stream, was very surprised. So thank you for that. I won't call you out on channel, but I'm getting more Zoomer every day. Yes, I am. And then thank you to my good friend Devin Nash. Devin's busy schedule has resulted in us needing to push out one of our planned streams. And I get to say that because it's his schedule and it's usually mine. But we have another one coming up on the 22nd where Devin's going to take a personality test, a workplace capabilities and skills test, and I've already taken it, and we'll go over our results live on stream and talk about it. Devin Nash, have you recovered? Man, that guy did not sleep at TwitchCon. That's definitely, I have not yet gone back to being enough of a Zoomer to do what he does. He still has the Zoomer gene. I don't think he slept at all. There was one night I was out talking to him and friends. I went home at like 2:45 in the morning, and he was still going strong. And then I saw him the next day early. That's the hardest I've ever worked a con, he says. Well, I believe it. He looked wrecked. All right, what else? So the last thing I'll say about TwitchCon before we jump into building a network is I thought there were some really good announcements there. So I slept 14 hours last night, I believe it. The announcements I was most fond of, couple of them. First, the ads team killed it. They're doing the right thing by making it possible for streamers to remove pre-rolls. So one day, by the way, you'll probably see me run ad breaks. Because if I run ad breaks in the channel, like when you guys are entering questions or when we're transitioning segments, I'll be able to kill pre-rolls for everyone. And that seems like a good deal because, in my opinion, nothing is as rough as trying to drop into a stream or worse, having to reload a stream if it lags. and getting a pre-roll while you're trying to watch. So I should be able, coming up when they launch that, to get rid of pre-rolls for us, and that seems like a worthwhile trade. Plus, I got to use what we build, and so it wouldn't be fair if I didn't. What happens when Twitch ads conflict with a personalities ad? Well, that's a good question. Any downtime of stream is really bad for keeping user attention. I understand that, Tengoku. The truth is, though, it's either that or pre-rolls. So we can talk about it. I can leave pre-rolls going. It's totally a community choice. All right, what else? So another thing that's happening, there's a community member who's working on new branding for the channel. So in 2 weeks, we're going to have a whole new look. I will be picture in picture with some of the topics we're working on, the questions, the chat around me. That'll be good. And here's a challenge for you. I've been discussing it on Discord. Mods, throw up our Discord if you get a chance. I built that. Yes. Plus David, our producer, is here tonight, and he built our question and answer widget. Yes, I do have a Discord. It'll show up in a second. There it is. Tengoku. And it's interesting you would say that, Tengoku, since you reached out to me on Discord today. So there you go. He just thinks I'm really amazing that I figured out Discord. I would say all by myself, but that's a lie. Actually, I had help. But I'll say it's pretty useful. Like, I get now why people use it. So yes, I was resistant. I thought, I'll just use Twitch tools. Wrong idea. All right, anyway, to start entering questions, you can use Awesome Dave's question widget. The instructions are there. And let's jump in. Oh, I forgot. Sorry. Right before we jump in to how and why to build a network. We now have a big enough regular community that we should have a name. So like Devin's here, he calls his team the Nash Nation. We need a name for the Easy Coach followers. And we were discussing it on Discord. You can see it in the general chat there. Or you can throw it up in chat and my mods will read it if I can't. Sneezes says, love your content. I'll be listening for a bit, but I'm sadly East Coast, so I'm mostly a VOD viewer. That's okay. I get the timing doesn't work for everyone, and that's why we put stuff out on YouTube and podcast. I'll also say I ran into somebody today who tells me that he listens to my stream at double speed. When he listens to the VOD, he doubles the speed, and I have to say I'm amazed. It either means he's really smart, or I speak really slowly, or I don't have much to say. And I hope it's not the last one. It would be sad if he's like, well, you know, you only have one good idea every couple minutes and I can catch it on the way by. That would be sad. So I'm going to believe instead he's really smart. All right. So let's jump in. Look, how, when, and why to build a network. So here I'm talking about a professional network, and I want to talk about easy riders. Oh, David, that's Ethan's executives. I have thought about going with an Ethan's execs is a good idea. So good call, Devin. That might work. Easy riders, little too much double entendre, perhaps. Easy Coach Academy, that's good. Devin's good at this. What do you know? Ask the marketing guy what to name it, and you get good ideas. Thanks, Devin. So networking. Let's start with when to build a network. Now, I've talked about the Easy Nation. That's not bad either, Kyle. I've talked about this before, but who in chat knows my answer to when to build a network? When should you build? Because I've talked about it before when we've been talking about job search. Who in chat can throw up when to start on a network? Yeah, answers always. And immediately, yesterday. And most importantly, before you need it. The worst sins I see of network building are people who don't try and put any effort into a network until they actually need to call on people. Easy executives. I like that. Investigate investing. That might be the winner. It sticks with the Easy Coach branding, but gets executives in there. And wouldn't it be great if you could easily be an executive? If I can teach you that, you all owe me a beer or something. Always be networking. That's right, Chalupa. So here's the point. Let me tell you, I've honestly seen people that, see, when I get out the pointy finger, I'm mad. That's a hint. Maybe we'll make that another, like the blue shirt, that can be another one of our emotes, because we have some more emotes we need to build. And by the way, I've been told never point. You should always extend the hand of friendship. So I should point with my hand, not you. So body language matters. I got an amazing guy for that. Let me know. So look, I've actually had people not start building their network until they got fired. So they've actually been fired from their job. And then suddenly they're like, hey, I need to build a network. I'll get on LinkedIn and start inviting people. First, you don't want your friends and contacts to feel used. Like, that sucks for them. And they're going to feel that way. And if you only contact people when you need them, what do you think of friends who only only reach out to you when they need something? We all have that friend that we never hear from until you know when you see their text or you pick up the phone, they want something. How do you really feel about that? That most people, that doesn't feel very good. Well, the same thing is true for professional networking. So this is why you want to start early is A, you need a big network when you're in trouble. And B, you don't want to be that guy or that woman who only tries to reach out to people when you want something, because you're not going to have a very strong network that way. Finally, the other reason to always be networking, hey, paintbrush, the other reason to always be networking is, and I like that, that's catchy. Maybe note for our Heidi when she cuts up the stream to put on YouTube, always be networking would be a good clip title for something. So when you may get from your network opportunities you're not expecting. So I just got hit up for a great job opportunity. I'm not looking to leave Amazon, and I won't out this company, but it was an incredible, hey, Dr. Voice You, thank you for subscribing, particularly with Twitch Prime. As everybody knows, I built and run Twitch Prime along with a couple of my teammates, and thank you for the sub. In any case, so network is just relationship building. No, you have to figure out how you're going to add value to that network and how you're going to, it is a lot of relationship building, but how are you going to have a reputation? There are people with a lot of friends whose friends will not recommend them, who will say, yeah, I know Fred, but, and that, you don't want that, right? Because you can have a lot of friends without having a very good network. And we'll talk about that. Honestly, part of networking is trying to at least get to know or meet people who are in positions where they can help you. It doesn't always mean sucking up to power, but it doesn't hurt to build your network and to be intentional about who you try to cultivate and who you invest in and who you don't. And that doesn't, again, mean be a dick and blow people off because they can't help you out. That won't work out. But you do want to think about if this person is in a position that I would like to be in or knows people I'd like to know, how can I build a relationship with them? All right. So the point is, start now. Start before you need. And like I said, my network just dropped a job opportunity in my lap, and it's a great job. Like, if I were looking to move from Amazon and to move out of the Seattle area, it would probably be a job that pays more. It would probably be, well, it would definitely be a job with more people. Yeah, Ethan 2020, Devin, definitely not. You know, with Devin on the ticket. Now that would be funny, the Ethan Devin ticket. I don't think Devin's old enough, folks. We'd have to wait a couple years. He's still a youngin'. All right, so Devin is 54. All right, so let's talk about why to build a network. So let me tell this story of what happened to me today, okay? Because it sucked, honestly. There's someone at work who's in a position to make a decision, and he's got a lot of stuff going on in his head, and a lot of concerns, and I would like to get and give him some information to influence this decision. Now, I'm not trying to manipulate the decision. I'm fine with what he decides, but I want to make sure he has all the data and fairly considers it. And here's the problem. I've made a mistake. This person's a little bit hard to reach. It takes a lot of effort to get their attention. And I have not invested in that relationship. And so the result is I don't have the friendship or the context to call on him and really get his attention. So that was a screw up. And the reason I don't have it is, I won't go into it too much, but there's some reasons why I haven't invested in that relationship. Partly just the difficulty and the time, and partly style. But I have not invested in that relationship, and it bit me in the ass today. So I have a coach. I think I've shared that before. Just like I try and share what I do with you, I have a coach, and she pointed out to me, I had a coaching session with her today. She pointed out to me and she said, well, you need to go to the people who have influence with him then. Hi, Diggity Dog Dave. You need to go to the people who have influence with him and get them to carry your message. And I realized I'd screwed up again, because many of his closest and most trusted associates, I also have not invested in building a relationship. Now, I won't say I have no relationship with anyone who has trust for them. That would be too far. But it became clear when suddenly I had need that I had underinvested. So point number one, I guess, is if you're thinking about building a professional network, realize that you'll always be working on it. Chalupa said, always be networking. Well, part of that is you also have to be maintaining that network and thinking about who needs to go in it. And you want to think about who you might need to use that network to reach. And do you have those connections? Now, I realize a lot of the audience here is younger and is just coming out of college. I talk to you guys all the time, or I saw you at Twitchcon. And you're like, network, what the hell is that? And who's it going to be? Well, I will say this. Part of my most powerful network is from people I went to college with. And no, your college roommate, you may think your roommate, if you have one, is useless today. But give him 20 years. Give her 20 years. And he or she may be in a really important position and may have a big network of his or her own that you want. Your drinking buddy or your sports club buddy or your gaming buddy, they may be fairly useless today. I say that in all love. You may have trouble imagining what they're ever going to help you with. But they could be invaluable later. And so invest in those relationships and build long-term friendships. Now, what does it mean to invest in a relationship? We'll get to that in the how stories here in a minute, and then we'll start taking questions. So no one's entered a question yet, and I see Dr. Voicio is asking questions here. Go ahead and move those into our extension for questions, and I'd love to answer them there. Mods can pop up the Q&A again. There you go, how to ask a question. The widget, I always forget. So anyway, I try and look at them in chat, but I like to let people have a chance to vote on the extensions. Within the extension to pick the questions. So you need to be thinking about your network and be adding people to it. And part of this, by the way, is as simple as when you meet someone cool or interesting, ask for their contact information and add them on some social network. Connect to them on Twitter, LinkedIn, anything you want. But build a connection you can go back to and find a way you can add value to them. And thank you for the questions that are now coming in. We'll get to those in a couple minutes. Connect to them and then stay in touch. And the great thing about social media is it's a scaled way. It's a scaled way for you to stay in touch with lots of people at once. And it's a scaled way like this show to add value to a lot of people at once. So social media has actually made networking way easier and way more automated. Used to be people had this thing called a Rolodex. You can find it in your local museum. And it's where they kept business cards in a little machine and they alphabetized them. So you can imagine doing all that crap by hand, and now your phone contact list serves the same purpose. So last thing I'll say on why. A number of people on this channel who've searched for jobs have told me they can't get a call back without an introduction. Hey, Doc, I appreciate that you're definitely going to be sharing this with your coworkers tomorrow at our team meeting. Thank you. If you end up in the situation where you need to look for a job, or you want to look for a better job, or you want a good chance at getting a job, hiring managers are worried about risk. And a random resume from the internet, no matter how good, is probably full of lies, or at least that's what managers worry about. So what they're considering is they're considering, do I know this person? Does someone I trust know them? And they'd much rather consider a lesser resume of someone they know and trust or that is referred in than a greater resume from someone they don't know. And a network is the only way you're going to get that referral. So now let's switch to how to build it. And then we'll come back to questions. And Chalupa, I'm sure Awesome Dave appreciates that call out. So thank you for that. So now let's talk about how. Couple quick stories. There's some good questions coming in. The way our Q&A works, by the way, is it pins the moderators to approve them. So they're approving them now. And the whole audience should go vote on them. Tell me what you want me to talk about so I answer the things that are most interesting to you. And SR 1213, you can throw it into the Q&A and we'll get to it if we can. All right. And I see a lot of questions are showing up in there, which is great. So let me hit how real quick. All right. Story number 2. Amazon's a big place. It's in Seattle. There's lots of ski hills around here, and they all have tickets. And there was a guy at Amazon for about 10 years who went around to the different ski hills and got group deals on the tickets, brought them into the office, resold them at the discount price with no profit, and distributed them to skiers. Now, you might think, how do you build a network? And you have no idea. Like, oh, I'm not an executive. Nobody wants to talk to me. That guy had a killer network of people who appreciated him. They might not know jack shit about his technical ability. He was a tech guy. But they know he's a nice guy and they've met him and they're going to recognize his name. And if he chose, which I don't know if he did or not, to build a social network out of those folks and say, hey, connect me on LinkedIn, or reached out to them, he could have an enormous social network of people who appreciate him. And what he did was a simple public service. Now, did it take a lot of work? Sure, but he wanted cheap ski tickets himself. And by doing that for everyone else, he brought in all these cheap ski tickets, I'm sure, for himself. And maybe, I don't know, maybe on the back end, the ski hills were giving him a freebie now and then because he was selling so many tickets for him. Maybe he wasn't, but maybe he had a racket where he was meeting everyone and getting free skiing himself. I don't know. Certainly, I would have tried that. I'd have said, like, look, I'm selling 100 tickets a weekend for you. What can you do for me? But that's just me. He may not have done that. I don't know. What I know is he got a ton of friends that way. So my point is, building a network doesn't have to be just socializing. And one of the questions is recommendations for an introvert. We'll get to that in a minute. But you don't have to be a win friends and influence people, Dale Carnegie, go into a room and work a bunch of people cold. Voice says, hiring and training is an expensive part of running a business, so business owners don't want to make a mistake and invest into the wrong people. That is completely true. And that's why they like referrals. By the way, stat I can share, I think I can share, I don't think it's harmful. Broadly speaking, at both Twitch and Amazon, between 25 and 30% of the people hired come from referrals. So and I think that's going to be true at any decent sized company, and it's actually going to be higher at a startup. So up to a third of all people coming into a company had a referral. So if you want a shot at that third of jobs, you need a referral because there's a referral running against you for that job. All right. So generalizing the ski ticket point, you can build a network off anything that connects you to people. Clubs, sports, doing an open source project if you're technical that lets you meet people, giving away marketing services or advice, any skill you have or interest where you're an expert, you simply share it with people. So think of something you like to do and go do that with a lot of other people and put them in your network if they're people you'd like to know better and be able to call on. Now that seems like very generic advice, but my point is pick something you're naturally passionate about. And then use that passion and build a network around it. Somebody says they've heard Investigate Investing says they've heard stats that 80% usually for referrals. I don't think it's quite that high, but it's big. All right, last point, and then we'll jump into questions. So my last point is the story of the question of the week. And for all the regulars who are here, and I see a lot of you in chat, thank you for being here. And I'm sure some of you are lurking. Each week, we go through a question that is designed to build closer and closer relationships. And it's taken from a guy named Arthur Aaron, who ran an experiment, who figured out that if you disclose a little bit about yourself personally, then people will disclose back to you a little bit more about themselves, and you'll end up building a closer relationship. And so that's why, like, there's the joke in chat here about how old is Devin. He makes fun of not disclosing that, and so people really want to know. But the point is something as simple as exactly how old you are can make people think like you're sharing your authentic self. And so most streamers do this. That's what makes their community. It's an interaction where I'm sharing something of myself and who I am, and that builds relationship. It's the blue shirt. It's a brand thing. Could be the blue shirt. That's true. And I'm off brand today, which is very rare, but I'm on brand for Twitch, so we'll let it pass. So I'm going to go ahead and do something I rarely do, which is ask the question of the week early. And the point is, what this guy Arthur Aaron figured out that you can do and use is, it was really dumb. He ran this experiment, or someone who's followed up on his research ran an experiment where they sent an actor to a bus stop. And the actor would say one of two lines to try and strike up a conversation with people at the bus stop. And he had a like cold line, like a non-intimate line, and then a more intimate line he would try. And intimate wasn't very intimate, as you'll see. His first line he would try on people at the bus stop was something like, boy, it's been a long week. I'm really glad it's Friday. And he wouldn't ask a question, and he wouldn't disclose anything. He'd just say, oh, I'm so glad it's Friday. And then they recorded how many people engaged back or said something to him. And then his intimate self-disclosing line was like, wow, I've had a really hard week. What about you? And by sharing that he had had a hard week, and by saying, what about you? Massively more people engaged him. And that was considered intimate because, and obviously it's not very intimate or revealing about yourself, but the point is his number of people interested in him and who engaged him shot way up. So I do this every week, and I do the question of the week Um, and so my question of the week is number 10 on his list of 36. And that question is, if you could change anything about the way you were raised, what would it be? And if you could change anything about the way you were raised, what would it be? So the way we do this for anybody who's new is in chat. We ask anybody and everybody to answer that question and jump in with what would you like to change about how you were raised. And I will answer that in a minute. Meanwhile, Tengoku and some others ask, could it be because his question directly references someone rather than just being an offhanded comment? So the experiment was cleaner than my verbal description of it. And so you can look up the experiment, but the experimenters designed it to try to be as close as they could. Plus, David, first one in, he would change the way he was raised around eating habits. That's a good answer that I kind of wish. I don't think that would be my number one priority, but I wish my parents had taught me different eating habits as well. Tengoku says same, and I will share with that. I came out into college about 80 pounds overweight. NVA Hitch, not letting me make my own mistakes. Good answer. Chalupa Whale, tough one, more accepting of mistakes. So that's where I am, Chalupa. My family did not tolerate failure. They were pretty harsh and pretty judgmental and pretty demanding. And specifically, nothing was ever good enough. Not accepting a failure, that's fine. But when nothing's ever good enough, that kind of sucks. And so I wish that had been different. Ethernight, learn to program. I would ask to be raised to be more confident when I was younger and to not be so concerned about self-image. Again, I agree with that. That's similar to what I was saying. I definitely got a little bit of an inadequacy thing that it took me a long time to overcome and realize I'm fine how I am. I can always be better, but I'm fine how I am. So keep the answers coming. Meanwhile, you guys have asked a lot of good questions in our Q&A widget. So I'm going to look at what Sneezes just wrote, and then I'm going to jump into the first question, which has a good set of votes. And remember, there's a ton of you watching. Go to the extension and vote on what you'd like to talk about or ask your own question. So let's see. I would change being taught how to schedule and plan better. I got by in my formative years and even most of college skimming and cramming instead of actually studying. I still think I'm not hitting my potential academically because I never really learned to set aside time and study. Yes, very few people get taught good study habits now, or even time management. And I'm sure Devin's still here. He loves this book, Letters from a Stoic by Seneca, and it talks completely about how time is such a precious commodity and how most people just waste it. Tiags, I wish my parents were a little bit stricter. I was free to do whatever, but that gave me a lack of direction. All right. Any recommendations for networking as an introvert? That's our first question. So mods, pin that to the top. It'll show up on screen, and I will jump in. So look, networking doesn't have to mean you go to a bar or go to some meeting and walk around with a club soda in your hand saying hello to people you don't know. Here's a couple ways to network as an introvert. Number one, take a friend. If you have to go somewhere you're uncomfortable, take a friend with you. Ideally, a friend who's more extroverted or who knows some of the people and who can bring you into the conversations. So, for example, when I met my wife, I didn't know her friends and she didn't know mine. And we're both kind of introverted. And so we discussed that when we introduced each other to friends, we had to make sure to include the other in the conversation. So that's a trivial example, but that's one way you can network as an introvert, which is take an extroverted friend with you, even if you have to bribe them or beg them. Second, do what I said earlier and find a common ground. There's very few introverts that are not passionate about something. Model trains, comic books, sports, anything, games, a particular game. Talk to people and build a community around the thing you're passionate about. Travel, foreign language. If you're going to tell me you have nothing you're passionate about, I can't help you. Go figure out something you're passionate about, or you're going to have a very hard time in life. If you truly care about nothing, you're kind of screwed. So I'm going to assume you care about something. Build your network by finding other people who care about that something and sharing it with them, and then radiate outward from that. Second, try to deliver some value to that network. Don't just be a sponge. Now, value can mean that you contribute technically or with a skill. It can mean you buy the potato chips. It can mean you set up the meetup. Anything that adds value. You provide the place to host it. You write the minutes. You do the newsletter. You maintain the Facebook group. You run the Discord server. There's a billion things you can do to add value. And it's funny how dumb people are about respecting status. As soon as you're the organizer, you're important. As soon as you're the admin, the mod, the author, people start looking up to you. As soon as you're the guy who gives out the ski tickets. It's dumb, but gosh, there's this article I've seen online. I'm sure chat can figure it out and throw the link up about how all humans are status-seeking monkeys. It's a little derogatory, but it's a great write-up about how our biological wiring is really good at hierarchy, and we're all status-seeking monkeys. And to a large degree, that's true. The trick is you have to figure out, if you're a status-seeking monkey, what skill do you have that will make other monkeys seek status with you? And everyone has that skill if they cultivate it. Now, I know we have a couple of introverts in chat, and it's funny to ask the introverts in chat to say anything, but I'm going to do it anyway. If you're a self-identified introvert in chat, how do you network? What do you do? What has worked for you? Because obviously I'm only somewhat introverted. I am introverted in that I don't like to go work a room of strangers. I don't like to be thrown into a big room where I know no one and have nothing in common. I find that very awkward. But if I have something in common, I'm super willing to talk and to chat and to do things like this stream. Seventh Fleet, thank you. School professional clubs, I agree. IEEE. For those of you who don't know, Seventh Fleet must be an engineer of some kind. It's the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, I think. Electronic because it dates back to like when things were made of radio tubes. Let's see. All right, I like staying at home, but I try to network with Lyft drivers. Actually, that's interesting. Like, you can also network with people that you meet as service people. I was talking to a streamer yesterday who puts her card in every restaurant check and leaves it with every Lyft and Uber driver. So she's networking by giving out business cards everywhere she goes. And no doubt that may interest some people, and it's super cheap because a box of business cards doesn't cost much. I've been networking events I have to do with my industry. I play off that similarity to go up and talk. I completely agree. Look, I'm the wrong person to teach you how to be extroverted, but people love to talk. You can ask about where they're from, how their day was, simple questions. I just listen to people. Offering an ear seems a good way to make a connection. Also true. T Weirdo, welcome in. Yes, how could you dare be late? No, we understand. People are busy. All right. I think I've answered that as best I can. We'll go to the next question, which I think is another good one. And keep the questions coming. Remember, if you don't keep the questions full and vote on them, eventually we stop talking. The next question is, how do you reactivate an inactive network contact? This is a great question. There are two ways to do it. Probably the simplest is just to reach out to them and say, hey, how you doing? We haven't talked in a while. Like, be really honest. Hey, I haven't heard from you. I haven't had a chance to connect. I've been wondering how you're doing. Or I've been wondering what's new in your job, in your life, with your kids, with your husband, with whatever. Ask a question. That's the simplest advice. How do you reactivate an inactive network contact? Ask the contact a question about them. Turns out every person in the world likes to be asked about themselves as long as it's not too invasive. Why? They're status-seeking monkeys. See, earlier point. If you tell them about you or say, hey, I wanted to get in touch to tell you I need a job or to tell you about my new thing, they're like, whatever, because that's putting you in the more important status. And now they have to decide if they're going to take the less important status. But if you ask them about them, you're automatically saying, well, I'm a monkey, but I have nothing to say. I want to hear about you. That's an ego pump subconsciously for everyone. Now, is it sucking up? No, it's being polite. It's not being too self-interested and taking an honest interest in others. It may also be sucking up. It depends on what's in your heart when you do it. But if you want to know how to reactivate an inactive network contact, just ask them a question. Now, you can be more advanced. The other way is to offer them value. So specifically, ask them a question about something valuable. Hey, I just wrote this new blog article. It's on something about your work. Would you like to read it? Or, hey, we're all going out to a bar tomorrow night or to see a concert, or we're all going to be playing fill in the blank game together tomorrow. Do you want to come? Is that your kind of thing? Questions like that where you invite people to something. Arf, arf, I love that. I just saw that. Just tell them monkey facts. Kind of monkey facts. Something relevant to them. Something that encourages them to engage. So good question. By the way, if I ever answer a question and you're the one who wrote it and I don't answer it in a way that you understood or I misinterpret it, you can feel free to call that out in chat and I will try to adapt. All right, we got another good question here. It's long, but someone asked it earlier and then put it in. Chalupa Whale, by the way, on the introvert question has a long answer in chat. I encourage you all to read it. I won't read it out here. So the next question is, so I heard an interesting piece of advice on networking. Having enemies can be as good as having friends. What are your thoughts on having strategic enemies? You may have to clarify this one a little bit in chat, and I'm okay with that if you're the author. I don't like to have enemies. Enemies is a strong word. And maybe you didn't mean it that way. So true enemies are people who are out to get you and undermine you and attack you. I'm not a big fan of that. And I don't like to make enemies because that puts stress in my life and probably stress in their life. I do think it can be, and I do think it can be okay to contrast yourself with others. And I will talk about that in a minute. And I see NVA Hitch, who may have written this, added some stuff. When you make a true enemy that's bad, you can contrast yourself with folks, though, and say, well, I don't agree with this. In other words, having an opinion and saying, look, I don't agree with whatever. I don't agree with people who are anti-vax. You can take a statement on the no vaxing idea or global warming or recycling or whatever. All of those are explosive, but if those are your real opinions, you will attract some people with common interests and you will repel people with differing interests. And I think that's okay. I don't think just picking a fight for drama is a great idea. That said, a lot of Twitch streamers seek drama, and it works for some of them. And I would say, I don't personally, that's not my style, but some people do it. And you can have fake drama, you can have real drama. It pulls people in because they're interested in a spectacle. I don't think it builds connections as well. But I get the point NBA Hitch is asking about, which is do people bond over having a common enemy? I would definitely say people do that in politics. People do it on causes. They're pro-gun, they're anti-gun, they're pro-choice, they're anti-abortion. You can make a network that way. The thing I don't like about it is, whatever your opinion, unless you want to be angry with people, that can build you a really angry network. And I don't personally want a really angry network, but it will work. Calvin Klein will call out the marketers here again. Calvin Klein said there's no such thing as bad publicity. And his point was, for a brand, getting his name in the news, people didn't remember if he was in the news for good things or bad things. They remembered his name, and that sold a lot of blue jeans. So it's a reasonable approach. It's okay. We won't tell Tifu you're talking about him. Please. I wouldn't want that. He seems like a nice guy, though, from what I've seen. So maybe he's really tough on stream, but from my interactions, he seems like a nice guy. So that's a limited observation based on about 5 minutes of exposure. My brand increased on my team when my nemesis got demoted. It was not a good experience, however, and I don't recommend it. Yeah, see, it's just painful. So anyway, I've answered this. I don't have strategic enemies if you want. Don't be afraid to make enemies if you must, to stand by your principles. That's different. And I think standing by your principles, though, is the goal, and the enemies are a side effect. All right. Next question is, any tools you have used to keep track of who you have contacted? I use LinkedIn for my primary professional network. I obviously use Twitch and mainly Discord for the Easy Coach network now. And then your message history tells you who you've contacted recently. And then I have a pretty good memory, but I don't use a specific like contact management tool. A lot of people in sales do that. They use a degenerate or an app-based version of Salesforce to keep track of when they've hit people up. I'm sure recruiters do it, but I don't use any other specific tool. I do use stuff for connections, and I think that's you definitely want to do that, because you can't possibly keep track of everyone another way. And tools like LinkedIn make it so easy where you can look and search through your contacts for what company they're at. What I'll say here is, I use LinkedIn. Use whatever you want, but definitely automate. So if you don't want to use that, use something else. So we're down to the last couple questions here. Put in more. Otherwise, I will answer these. And they're both good questions, so I'm happy to. But I invite the audience that's watching, jump into the widget, ask an update in our extension, anything else you'd like to talk about. The next question is, are there good ways to reach out to new connections or connections introduced to you? Absolutely. If you've just met someone, it's social just to send them a note that says it was great to meet you. So at Twitchcon, I got to meet a bunch of cool people. One of the people I got to meet that was fun is the retired Green Bay Packer, Amon Green. And he dropped by our booth because Amon's a gamer. Turns out, by the way, and this is cool, his despite the fact that, and the guy is still built. I will say he's still, Devin talked about somebody having a gun show. This guy was enormous, despite the fact he's been retired 10 years. But Amon Green, his favorite game is Halo 5, actually, which was surprising. You know, it's so stereotypical to assume football players going to play sports games. And he plays Madden. But Halo 5, I thought that was really interesting. He said he would play it all day if he could. He wouldn't play other games. It's his favorite game that he likes to play. So he dropped by. Well, he's the star, right? He's the famous football player. He had a handler with him, you know, making his way through the crowd. He had all these people around him. But he took my card. And first thing Monday, I got an email from him saying what a pleasure it was to meet me. And he hopes we're able to work together in the future. Now, that's class. And You can do that with anyone you meet. You can follow up and reach out to a new connection and say, look, it was just really a pleasure to meet you. Right? The status seeking monkey likes to be complimented. And a short note, 1 line, 2 lines, anything relevant you remember from the conversation or that you're interested in. And I look forward to hearing from you again. Or if you ever want to talk or have anything in common, let me know or reach out. You can say kind of anything. The point is build that connection, continue the interest, and at the same time that confirms that you're actually connected. Devin says it makes an insane difference actually just following up and saying, hey, great to meet you. Yes, Devin gave you the recipe in chat. It's right there. You just say anything that shows that you valued the status-seeking monkey and the other person. And I keep using that only because it's a funny phrase, that you valued the other human and the interaction, and that will bond you together. Bonus points hitting them up for something non-request oriented a bit later. That's exactly right. You just give them any piece of data. You say anything relevant. You share a tip. You share a news article. You say, I thought this might interest you, or I saw this and it made me think of you. You want to be true and authentic, but people love that. All right. Connections introduced you. Same thing. Follow up. Thank people for the introduction, etc. All right. This is a good question. I'm glad people have put in a couple more. Once you've made a connection, how do you actually utilize it to advance your career? So, the most obvious way is when you need a new job, you ask your network and they know you and they can refer you into places or tell you what's available. That is the most obvious way. However, you can also use your network even when you don't want to change jobs. You can ask your network for advice. You can ask your network to influence people. There's someone I know who's applying for a job. And this is interesting. It's a different use of a network. She's applying for a job. And I said, why don't you get your network to have a bunch of people send in social references to the hiring manager? And I had someone do this with me. There was a guy who we looked at for a job we were looking for. And we interviewed him, or someone had interviewed him previously, and found he didn't fit our company. And I guess we'd interviewed him a few times. So Amazon was really sure we didn't want to hire this guy, but he really wanted to have this job. So he went out to the game industry, and I got email after email after email from different relatively well-known industry figures that he knew saying, hey, you should really consider talking to Scott, or whatever his name was. And I was shocked, and so much so it almost worked. I went back to our recruiter who had said, we don't want to hire this guy, don't pursue it. And I said, one industry expert after another keeps telling me we should talk to him. Are you sure we shouldn't? What is the data? Why are you sure this is a waste of time? And in the end, it didn't work. But this was a guy who was dead and gone to the process, who got brought back to life like twice. And he was utilizing his network to make introductions or to give him a reference. Now, the other way you can use your network is simply you don't need a job, but you can reach out to people periodically and say, look, I'm always interested in new opportunities where I could run a bigger team or work on a harder problem or handle tougher contracts if you're a lawyer, or negotiate bigger deals, or get better income, or a shorter commute, whatever your thing is. You can be talking to people about that and asking them, hey, if an opportunity like that ever comes up where I would fit, please let me know. You can have a passive job search running all the time. Now, I'm not saying job hop a lot. People know I don't do that. I've been at Amazon a long time. But you can have a passive job search for the next best thing running all the time. All right. Let's go to the next question. How do I measure the quality of my network when I'm not actively leveraging it? Good question. First, I'd recommend you try to leverage it from time to time, and that will give you one idea of whether or not your network is high quality. Second, the dumbest but easiest measure is number. How many people are in your network? And funny story here, I travel a lot, both around the Seattle region and around the country and somewhat around the world. And my family is convinced I know someone in every place on earth, because wherever we go, I tend to meet someone or run into someone to say hello to on the street, whatever. So, and yet I actually consider myself relatively introverted. The point is, though, if over the arc of time you meet a lot of people and you're somewhat memorable to them, and you stay in contact, or you work for a larger company, or you went to a big university and you didn't just hide in your dorm room, you'll end up knowing a lot of people. And people move around so much now, there's someone in every, whatever your network was, it will soon be in every town on earth. I have friends in China, friends in India, friends in Germany, friends in the UK, friends probably in Ireland. I certainly know a lot of people with connections to Ireland. And that's just a short list, not to mention probably every state in the union. And I haven't done that much except build a network over time. I'm not this special networking god. So if I can do it, you can do it. Because remember, I'm an engineer by trade, and engineers are famously introverted. Measuring the quality, though, the other question is, who's in it that you really look up to? That's probably the easiest measure of network quality. Who is in your network that you think has a skill, an ability, a role, a position, or an accomplishment that is impressive to you, that you wish you could emulate, that you'd like to be more like them? If your network is mostly people that you're like, she's all right, but you have nothing really good to say or nothing more than she's a nice person, that's not as strong. Let me look at chat real quick. Let's see. It would be interesting to know what data he showed he shouldn't be hired. Yeah, I can't reveal that here. Basically, yeah, I just can't go into that. I agree that would probably be interesting. There's some stuff I can't share that's, respectful of the person's confidentiality. Okay, a couple more good questions. I like them. And then if anybody else wants to ask a question, this is your chance. Do you prune your network? Rarely. There's no advantage to it. I prune people who are obnoxious. I've probably banned or unfriended, unconnected, refused connections to only a few people. It happens a little bit more now on LinkedIn because since I'm very active there, I get a bunch of requests that don't make sense, or, they're basically spam. But that's not pruning. That's choosing not to connect. Pruning is really only if people prove themselves to be jerks, because you never know who you'll need to reach out to. Now, a different version of this question is, do I prioritize my network? And the answer to that is absolutely. I have limited time, just like all of you have limited time. So I only invest in people who are close to me that I like and that have skills or things I look up to and respect, or that bring me joy. Now, I told a story earlier in the broadcast. Some of you may not have been watching because I opened up with this story where I've burned myself by doing that, because in some cases I didn't invest in people. I did not invest in people that I really should have, because I didn't feel that bond of common interest. And I think I learned today, or was reminded today, that that's a mistake. You can find common interests with most people, and if it's someone you really may need to work with, you want to do that. All right, next question is, what portion of a large network do you keep active? Well, I really kind of just talked about this. Um, Basically, there's uh, directly active, indirectly active, and passive. Um, is how I would class it. So directly active is like people I'm calling up or inviting to events or talking to one on one or messaging. And you can only do so much of that, a little bit. And for me, that's a core of 15, 20 people at most. Um, and so, uh, but through social media, you can keep a large network active by saying something interesting to them. Post on social media, any social media where you've built your network, photos of something cool you've done, articles you think are interesting with an insightful comment, something you've written, a song you've made, pictures of your kids, your dog, anything interesting that others will look at and go, oh, right, Ethan, I remember him. Or, oh, that was kind of cool. Someone earlier jokingly said it's hard to go wrong with puppy videos. Well, kind of it is. All right. So, and then the rest of my network, there is a passive network out there. It's probably most of the people who don't find the things I find interesting. Again, I don't kick them out. They chose to follow me or connect with me. At least it means I have a reason to reach out to them. Hey, you connected to me and now I need blah, blah, blah. Like, it's on them. They connected to me. I get to ask. You know, I'd rather be connected than not, generally, again, unless they're jerks. Now, I wanted to read, this is one thing I started doing via LinkedIn and Facebook. Yeah, so a little bit of pruning and prioritizing is good, but I wouldn't go overboard. Okay, next question is, do you let recruiters and headhunters into your LinkedIn network? Well, connect to me on LinkedIn and look around. But see how I slipped that in there? Call to action for networking. But yes, absolutely. I consider it sometimes, and I realize they may be poaching talent out of my team. But the way I think about it is the more recruiters I'm connected to, if I ever need a job, it's that many more people I can reach out to directly that I've added value to or built a relationship with. And I get a lot of inbound job interest, which is nice. If I ever wanted to leave Amazon, I'd reach out to all those recruiters I've connected to over time and say, what do you got? I'm looking for a move. I'm looking whatever. What's the downside? The downside is they may poach people off your team if they can. Like, that's why they're looking, and that's bad. But I always believe I keep my team by them being happy and having the best jobs, not by them not having other offers. So I don't worry about it too much, because if someone on my team can legitimately get a much better job somewhere else, I need to be happy enough for them. Like, I need to be positive on their behalf and be willing to lose someone to a better opportunity. Sometimes the only right thing to do is shake someone's hand. I'll call out someone who is a fan of the stream on LinkedIn. I don't know if he's ever been here and watched. We lost an employee from Twitch who went to Take Two. So he'll know who he is if he's on here, but he got a killer offer. Take Two wanted him to do something, and they were willing to hire him in a way that we couldn't match. So, I think good for him. Like, in the end, all I could do is shake his hand and say, man, I hope that works out for you. Good luck. And I think being big about that is good. So yeah, let the recruiters in and talk to them when they come in and say, hey, what you got? Or if you don't need anything, say, hey, if I ever wanted to reach out to you in the future, I'm not looking right now. What makes it easiest for you? Engage them. Or what kind of connection do you appreciate? Or what causes you in an inquiry to always pause and respond? These are questions you can ask them that'll make them think, and they'll remember you. Let's see. On the recruiter note, I've had so many calls with recruiters that I literally see it as a call center job. So I don't do any calls with recruiters, actually. I generally tell recruiters that I'm not going to have a call with them unless I am truly interested. And executive recruiters love to do this bullshit thing where they're like, well, we can't tell you about the job, except over the phone. I'm like, so I don't want it then. And they always cave and tell me 100%. If a recruiter tells you it's confidential and they can't tell you, tell them, okay, well, maybe I'd be interested, but I don't spend time. My time is valuable. And if you can't tell me what it is, I'm not getting on the phone. And they always cave 100%. Because they want candidates more than they want to protect the company's secrecy. And that's sad for me, by the way. If you're hiring, note, I can get your secret job out of every recruiter on earth. Yeah. You have to accept this pay before we tell you your role. Yeah, not anymore. I mean, interestingly, I took my job at Amazon not being told what it was. I was young and foolish. It worked out. But I got lucky, and I could have gotten burned. All right. So a lot of people have voted for this question now. Is it ever too late to reach out to someone you met at a conference? No. If you remember them and have their contact info, it is never too late. Particularly if you're going to reach out to them and say, hey, I found your business card in the bottom of my sock drawer, and I don't remember where we met, but I kind of think your title sounds cool. Sure, you're screwed. But otherwise, if you can say, hey, Sally, it's been a while, but I remember you from Twitchcon, or I remember you from CES or Comic-Con or wherever you were. Devin says, warm intro of any kind is always better. But any sort of way you can legit say you remember where you met them is good enough. Particularly if it's been a month, you'll sound status-seeking monkey again. You'll sound like you impressed them. You'll sound like, hey, I remember you from this event. And that will actually be like, wow, you remember me 3 months later? Because they're secretly thinking, honestly, and you have to be prepared for this, I don't remember you at all. But then the interesting thing about the status-seeking monkey is when you tell them you remember them, they're immediately racking their brains and going, who the hell is this Ethan guy? I don't remember him at all, but now maybe I forgot somebody important. That's great, right? They're going to be interested, and you've got them engaged. So Ojo Fourier, not going to lie, I lost a business card from a conference a while back and was debating on reaching out even though I had an entire lunch talk with him. Sure. Reach out any way you can. Most people welcome connections as long as they're polite and valuable, and they also tolerate excuses. Now, if you're always unreliable and always in the relationship making excuses, people will learn you're unreliable. But I would have no shame, really, in telling people, I know I met you at TwitchCon, but I met a lot of people there, and I'm sorry, I don't recall your name, what you do, or anything about you. Now, I wouldn't say it that way, but I could be honest about that. I could find a way. Now, is that ideal? No, you want to do better than that. But people understand generally, and you're still showing legitimate interest in them, they're pretty tolerant. Will you get rejected sometimes? Sure. But most people's form of rejection is they just don't respond, which lets me work in one of my favorite sports quotes because it applies here. And that quote's from the hockey star Wayne Gretzky, who said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. What's the alternative? Very few people are actually going to write you back and say, you dick, you waited a month to reach out to me and now you misspell my name. I just want to let you know I will remember you, but with hatred. Come on. They may not be impressed, but there is no downside to reaching out. The worst they're going to do is not answer, because the modern thing is just ghost on people. All right. We're down to the last question, and we've had a nice long broadcast, good audience. I want to talk about some of the stuff we'll be doing next week. So I'll roll into that, and then I'll answer our last question. Last call if anybody wants to vote or add anything. So our next show is going to be on Monday next week, and I hope you're all interested. we're going to talk about dealing with egos at work. How do you deal with people that are egotistical, but also how do you recognize when ego in the broader sense is driving people? And what I mean by that is not just ego like, oh, I'm proud or I'm haughty or I'm looking down on you. People's ego is their center of self-worth. And if their self-worth is threatened, they're in pain. And almost all the problems you're going to have interpersonally with people at work is because they're in some kind of pain. They have a pressure on them. It may or may not be from you, but they're in some kind of pain, and that's causing them to lash out or do something irrational. That is totally something that you can learn at least to recognize their pain and try to get out of the way or manage around it. And I would just say, learning to recognize what's driving people and understand that people will do anything to reduce their personal pain is very valuable. So that's our topic next Monday the 7th at 6 o'clock. Devin's hung out with us the whole time. I got Devin 2 weeks after that. I think it's the 22nd by memory. But we're going to do a live session in Awesome Dave's basement studio. So it'll be two of us talking together. We're going to go over personality tests. And that's going to be Myers-Briggs, DISC, possibly StrengthsFinder. We're going to go over those, talk about their utility, look at his results, look at my results. We'll learn a few things about the ever-secretive Devin Nash. You'll learn a few things about me, possibly. That'll be my disclosure, a way to build relationship. And the other thing I ask, and Dr. Voicu said he was going to be doing this, please refer others to our channel. You can refer them to us on YouTube. We publish this every week on all the major podcast channels, or you can bring them back to the show. We love to have a big live audience because it drives the Q&A as well as the chat. It's fun to get to know all of you here in chat. I love the fact that almost every name here in chat I now recognize from Discord because I've had a chance to talk to you there. I love that. So bring in more people. That's how we grow. So going back to our last question, our question is, do you try to add diversity to your network somehow? This is an awesome question, and it's one that I haven't done a good job on. I do try to add diversity to my network in some ways. I'll actually tell you, you can go see this on the Easy Coach blog. Thanks to Awesome Dave, who's here in chat. He picks all the images that go on the blog when we announce each show. You can go look. Every single image, other than photos of me working with people, we've ever used on the blog, if it has a person in it, that person is a woman, or there's at least one woman in the photo. There's also a number of people from different backgrounds, and that's very intentional. And so we're intentionally trying to communicate that this is a community and a chat, and our coaching is for everyone. Same thing, some of you know that I coach two people live on stream. Now, I was interested in picking anyone to coach, but I'm super happy that the two people who had the best cases to come on stream and who wanted to be live coached in front of an audience were a woman and an executive from India. I'm super happy about that because it gives contrast and it shows that this community is for everyone and that we can speak to the difficult issues women face in the community and in the workplace, and that we can speak to the difficult issues people from outside the U.S. face. And so I'm really happy to welcome people from other communities. And then those people grow in the network. So the more I talk about those topics, the more those people see and hear and reach out to me. And so Are there other ways to add diversity to your network? Sure. If you pick to build your network around something typically male or typical of a single subgroup, whatever group you're in, you're going to tend to get more people like that. If you try to pick something to relate to or brand yourself in a way that's more open and inclusive, you'll get more diversity. That there's no perfect solution, and I didn't give you a lot of specifics there. Let me try to give you a specific. I said earlier you can build a network around any activity or passion. Consider trying to pick a passion that, if you want to add diversity, has a diverse set of people interested in it. If you pick something that's all people of your culture, all people of your race or gender identity, you're generally going to get that. Now, I'm not going to call out any communities, but there are plenty of communities that have one identity. And if you want diversity, you're not going to get it that way. All right. And then one of the things we do here is, obviously, if our moderators see anything that's hard on diversity, we excuse those people. And we do it quickly. We don't tolerate bullying here. So, all right, that seems to be a wrap, folks. We've gone through all the open questions. I really appreciate everyone who showed up tonight, hung out, chatted. It was great. We got some really good suggestions early about what to name the community. I think the one I like the best is Easy Executives. That's kind of my current leader. But you can drop into our general chat on Discord if you would like to add to that. Say anything new. Give us some other ideas. I think I'm looking forward to our stream next week on Monday. And then we have a couple of live streams coming up. By the way, I never asked this community for any support. I never do any fundraising on it. I am going to have a guest on from the Washington Trails Association, the executive director, Jill Simmons, in 2 weeks on the 15th. And when she comes on, I want to do a fundraiser for the Washington Trails Association. And there's going to be an offer there. I appreciate anything at that time you choose to gift each other subs, donate, use bits, etc. That would be awesome. Yep, we're going back to Dave's basement. But I'm also going to be somehow auctioning off, raffling off. I'm not sure how we'll do it. I haven't figured that out yet, but I'm going to be raffling off some private, offline, one-on-one coaching sessions. It won't be very many. So if you've ever wanted an hour of the Easy Coach's time for any topic you want in the coaching space, this is going to be your chance. So go break open your piggy bank, work overtime, do anything you'd like, and all of that money will end up being a fundraiser for Jill and the Washington Trails Association. So that streams in 2 weeks. You got 2 weeks to take out a loan, mortgage your house, sell that car, and get some exercise walking. Any way you want to do it, there's going to be the opportunity, and I will give you my honest best. And I will say, just so you know, it'll be a lot cheaper than this. But the last time I sold an hour of paid coaching on this stream to someone who contacted me on stream and asked for it, they donated $1,000 to the Washington Trails Association. Now, I get that not everybody's got a G to part with, and so I'm not going to ask that of the community. But I'd love it if you would consider, if you get value from this and you'd like my help, this is a chance for you, presuming, by the way, you're in the U.S. You don't have to be to donate, by the way. If you're in the U.S., you get it as a tax write-off, right? It's a tax-deductible charity. So you can contribute and write it off, save yourself some money. But I would love it. Think about it. I'll give you my very best personal input. And there's only going to be a few of those hours. So it's also true, by the way, if you're listening to this later on podcast or YouTube, you've got 2 weeks to figure out how you're going to get a bid in. Now, I can be reached either in Discord or through my blog. We will figure out a way to take offline bids so that if you can't make it here that night, but you really want to contribute, you will get that chance. So that's my offer. Put it out to your friends. We'll start talking about it. But I'm going to do one fundraiser and only one this year, at least for the rest of 2019. And this is it. So that's my pitch. All right. So with that, thank you all for being here. Love you all. Looking forward to seeing you next week. And as I always say at the end of every session, cheers. Have a great night.